a fantastic place. It's beautiful. It is beautiful. This is heaven.
In the mid-1960s, Toronto's Yorkville area flourished as Canada's Bohemian cultural centre. As the Canadian capital of the hippie movement, Yorkville was a place where societal dropouts and nonconformists could congregate to be accepted and to freely express their ideals. "Do as you please so long as you don't hurt anybody else," was the Yorkville motto. Casual drug use, peace, and free love were all commonly accepted principles and practices of the time.
About noon, the hippies start moving.
The hippie culture eventually dissolved in Yorkville, and the area was redeveloped into a neighborhood so far removed from the counterculture and anti-societal ideals of the hippies in the 1960s. The area is now one of Canada's most exclusive shopping districts.
Some hippies never quite got around to leaving Yorkville.
Whenever you're ready.
Ready on my light. Okay, let's do it.
Once we left Yorkville and got more into the Kensington Market section of Toronto, we started to notice that it resembled more of what the video looked like, not what Yorkville looks like today. Kensington has become kind of the new hangout spot for all the modern day hippies. Kensington is a smaller place that feels more like a community rather than a city. It doesn't have any of those major name brands that you saw earlier, or any of the fancy cars or traffic lining the streets like there is today in Yorkville. Kensington Market was a way nicer place to go hang out. There's tons of vendors selling fresh fruit, cheap clothes, just kind of some cool stuff that you wouldn't really think of seeing in Yorkville, but that's what used to be there. There's even some cool places like Rocherama that kind of really brought you back to what you think of when you think of a hippie. They had a patio out back. You could just go do whatever you want. They had the Hot Box Cafe. You can rent a vaporizer.
The hippies bring their beards, beads, and dirty feet, their vague ideas of free love and spiritual love, their marijuana and LSD. They're different, but what are they? This is Bill, a real hippie. He wandered from Vancouver to San Francisco, where the movement began 18 months ago, then to Yorkville.
A hippie was someone who really lived their lives for their life. Most of the kids down here are what I term as summer help. Most of them weren't hippies. Sure, they were cool kids and all, but they're not hippies, they're villagers. There's a difference. Hippies protested mainstream society by not conforming to mainstream society. They did this by not getting jobs, living life to the fullest, and doing what they wanted.
The Kensington Market area of Toronto is fairly reminiscent of the feel and culture of 1960s era Yorkville, with pedestrian-friendly streets, an open-air market, and open consumption of cannabis. Though the vendors and residents of Kensington Market succeeded with one thing that the Yorkville hippies never did. They've achieved a pedestrian mall. Certain days of the year, parts of the streets in this area are closed to motorized traffic, and pedestrians can walk freely down the middle of the road between shops. They wanted the city to close Yorkville to traffic and turn the area into a pedestrian mall. 200 took part in the sit-in, while 2,500 stood and watched.
Before Yorkville became the posh shopping haven it is today, it was a haven of a different type. Yorkville was a hippie getaway, the base of Canadian bohemia. Many young Canadian artists, such as Gordon Lightfoot, Neil Young, and Joni Mitchell, performed at Yorkville in the 60s. Other notable residents included Margaret Atwood and Dennis Lee. However, not all Torontoans held Yorkville in such high regard. Former Maple Leafs player and MPP Syl Apps referred to Yorkville as a festering sore in the middle of the city.